Yeah, I told you I was prepared. I think I had that
Thank you
finished
for
by
being
like
prepared.
3 or 4 o'clock today.
You're the best.
I love doing stuff like this. This is what I want to do forever.
Yeah, isn't interviewing so much fun?
I mean, it is. I can do it with my hands tied behind my head and blindfolded. I literally had to do that my whole
Can.
career. Literally, I had to hire so many people.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm so mad. I was actually gonna wear this red nose the whole time while I interviewed you, and I put it in my
I
goddamn
would not have
pocket.
been able to be serious.
Well, that's I wanted.
But
I
it would have
wanted you
been
to be a little bit
goofy.
more.
It would have been goofy.
Yeah, we would have tested it out to see, but
Yeah,
I wanted you
surprise me
to
someday.
really be, just kind of silly and playful and see what happens.
Loosey goosey.
That's gonna be great for a lot of social media reels too.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I love the news.
I'll work on that for us. So. But yeah, I'm so happy to be here with you, Becca.
Yes, thank you for being here. Round 2 of this.
Oh yeah, yeah. I double and triple checked the audio to make sure it's going through Rodecaster, so we're good to go.
Yes, thank you everybody who has been sticking with us and hanging tight as we skip this week to make sure our audio and video was up to par.
Yes.
All part of the learning experience for sure. So let's get going. Ayo, this is Best of Becca, and this is my co-host Kingferdinand. Woo! Tell us a little bit where we find you. You make this all happen, so we have to let them know where they can also find you too. How they can follow.
Absolutely. And now the show Talking Just to Talk with King Ferdinand is available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Yeah.
Oh my God, as well as YouTube. So you can find it all across all platforms. King Ferdinand, all one word, .tj2t on social media. So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all the same name. So it's very easy to find. Talking Just to Talk with King Ferdinand. I'm the host of that show.
Yes, and he's got a whole library of things, so go binge.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes, thank you, Becca.
And if you want a new closet, he also has a whole website where you can go browse his clothing line.
The house of King Ferdinand. I can't forget about that. It's kingferdinand.love. It's all the things that I love that's on that website, and we're starting off with t-shirt designs right now. So check it out.
Man, what are the young kids call it now? Drip. That's definitely got some drip in it.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for the shout out, Becca.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to dive deep in today's topic. And today's topic is really around the definition of imposter syndrome. But what we're going to call it is recreating yourself. So I want to ask you, have you ever experienced the recreation, the imposter syndrome?
Yes. It's so relevant. And I said this last time when we recorded it, and it's still relevant even right now in this very moment. As far as the imposter syndrome, I've experienced that in my professional career, even in my friendship dynamics. And I know we'll storytell over the course of this episode. But, the one example that comes to mind is working for that very large tech company and being around a lot of very, very intelligent and very experienced individuals in different industries and business, and you feeling as if you don't have really anything to offer the conversation.
Yeah.
But in reality, I was around a lot of people who actually advocated for me and wanted to hear my input.
Yeah.
And so that imposter syndrome, it's always opposing what other people actually think. Sometimes you might be in the room that's intimidating and they're like, what is he doing here? What is she? But in reality, all of that criticism and ridicule, you're doing that to yourself.
Yeah, it's all self-brought. So let's dive a little bit deeper. So when does this happen? How do you know that you're going through a recreation process? And I'll say it happens when you have a career change.
Yes.
Or you're in an environment that you're like, do I really belong here? I know I just switched jobs where, I went from nonprofit world to now I'm in a university in a medical setting. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like today I was like, talking to somebody and I was like, wow, 3 months ago, I would have never known what a C-collar was. I would never be speaking in these terms. Like, who is this? Who am I? That kind of thing. So definitely like the jobs you are in can definitely create that little of who am I? Yeah.
And I can relate. Like if you give me an opportunity here. Coming from the corporate world, working, the traditional 9-to-5, working in these large corporations, what you do for a living is a large part of your identity.
Yeah.
So I work for myself. I have my own business, as we talked about earlier today, and I'm also the host of a show. And that, to me, that's really an identity shift. You have to really go through what I call a rebranding of self. Your personal
Hmm.
brand has to change, and your identity has to shift
Yeah.
because my identity no longer connects to my professional career. I mean, not in 100%, but I want to say more of my identity is on the entrepreneurial side and the creative side that I
Yeah.
haven't been able to explore my whole career.
Hmm.
So I'm literally living what we're talking just to talk about right now.
Yes, man, both of us were right here in it.
Hmm.
And I will say for me on the career side, it's like I don't just work for university. I don't just do this. I'm also a sound operator. I also do swim lessons on the side. You name it. And sometimes I'm like, who am I? Like we had a question earlier. It was like I was like, ooh, there's so much that I do, you know. I'm also a daughter. I'm also a cousin, a sister. Like there's so much. It's like,
Wow.
so
Yeah.
who really am I? I feel like I'm 8 million people sometimes. So it's really hard for me to sometimes hone in
Hmm.
on that for sure. And it changes so fast with time. You know, at one point I was the executive assistant and now here I am doing something completely different. And it's like,
Yes.
okay, who really, where are you going with this? And so
Right.
that imposter syndrome, really, it happens pretty regularly. Um, but it also happens for people, I think, when you finish school or military, and when you're transitioning out of something that you're so used to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're in a normal everyday routine of doing something,
Yeah.
or if you have some place to go on a weekly basis, every
Yes.
single week, you know exactly what you're going to be
Hmm.
doing because your schedule is going to tell you, your calendar is going to tell
Yeah.
you. But then when that shifts and changes, then you might go through a phase of like mourning what it is that you used
Yeah.
to do and having to create and develop what it is that you're going to be doing in the future.
Yeah, I really know that my veterans, I know you guys really struggle with getting out into the civilian world, and I really have a lot of respect for you guys because I know this is a tough transition, and I know you've got to be feeling that imposter syndrome, but I'm hopefully to bring you guys some light here soon. But I know right out of college, I was like, what do you mean? Like, who am I? Like, I can't be this like stoner girl all the time, and I'm broke college girl. Like those were the things that I like would identify as.
Hmm.
And so then once you get out of that and you get into that career world, like it's like, okay, whoop, identity swift,
Yes.
like what are
Yes.
we gonna do here?
And for me, like my whole career, if I look back on the blueprint of my career, it's always been in some sort of leadership capacity and being a communicator to
Mm,
communicate with other people,
mm-hmm.
to encourage them to do things for the business, for
Mm-hmm.
me, so we can accomplish a goal. But there comes a time when you are your own boss and there is no one else to
Yeah.
communicate with to get those things done.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no one that's obligated to listen to you because
Right.
they don't work for you, right? So there's an identity shift that happens, or it has happened to me, where
Mm-hmm.
I'm an individual contributor, right?
Yes.
There's a big
Yes.
difference because I'm so used to being in leadership where you are making a larger impact with a team of people,
Yeah.
but then you transition over into being an individual contributor. And for me, in my case, in my own business, in my own life,
Yeah.
that's a big identity shift.
Big time. And I think it also comes with if you're having to have a new role, and that's not necessarily in career. Maybe you're becoming a parent for the first time. And
That's a
you're
good
like,
one.
am I adequate for this? Am I gonna traumatize the hell out of this kid? Like, oh my god, now I gotta stop this, this, and that, and now I'm okay, now I'm gonna be watching Peppa the Pig all the time, or you know what I mean? Now my schedule's completely different. It's a 5 a.m. to
That's
8 p.m. kind of schedule. Like,
Yeah. And you don't have any kids. I don't have any
no, no
kids.
kids.
But I always empathize with parents, especially mothers, because they just have to. And I said this, and I'm glad that I'm able to kind of tap back into it
Hmm.
again. But they just have that's a complete identity shift when you have a
Yes.
child. Your whole life has to be centered around this child
Hmm.
and what they need, because what you need is going to take a back seat.
Yeah, and I'll even say it for the fur parents.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
once I got my little one, it was a whole different shift. I mean, it's like, okay, I've got to be home at this amount of time. I can't be doing this, this, and that.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to change my budget. I got to, level up my housing so that when she's growing efficiently, I've got to be mindful of other people. Like
Hmm.
it is just a whole nother switch when you bring in something to care for somebody.
Yeah, and then your habits too, because like
Hmm.
you might have a habit of going out, on the
Yeah.
weekends and having
Yep.
fun, but you got to think about that fur baby to
Yep.
make sure you're home to feed him or her or
Yep.
walk that dog. So
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and it's like I said, it's not only becoming a parent, but also like maybe you're just you're an aunt now, an uncle, and you're a role model. I know, like now I'm the baby of the family, and so now I have these little cousins that are looking up to me, and so that changes. I mean, I incorporate time on FaceTime and playing Roblox with them, and it
oh
comes in front of like going out and that kind of thing, because I think that's really valuable. Being part of their developmental phase in life. And
yeah.
so that changed. That was a little bit of imposter syndrome for me too. It's like, all right, like you're a role model now. You've got to showcase. You've got to be there. They'll call me in times when they're going through some difficult things in their home life, and it's like, all right, but it's a weird position because it's like I'm not officially their aunt and I'm not officially their parent. I'm just the much much older cousin.
Oh, I
So a
see.
little
I
bit of
see.
like in the line of friend there as well.
Yeah.
So
But if they look up to you, then you feel like there's a
yeah,
responsibility to
to
really,
guide
yeah,
a hundred
absolutely.
percent, absolutely. I'm a safe person for
Yes.
them, and
Yeah.
I've got to remember to be that for them as well.
Yeah.
My cousin has corrected me before. He's like, "Don't tell me what to do." He's like, "Oh, you're right. I'm not your parent." He's like, "I
Right.
don't like when you talk to me that way." I'm like, "Okay, gotcha. Okay."
Yeah. And you don't
Im-
want to tell them, you want to inspire them,
yeah,
right? To do what needs to be
absolutely.
done.
Hmm. Another thing though is breakups.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because you put yourself in this identity of who you are for them. Look at you
Yeah.
laughing. You got something to say.
I gotta, of course, I always have something to say when you come up with these topics because it's so personal. Like I think everybody can relate to the topics you come up with, but definitely have stories. But continue. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, no, just because like, all right, for me, like I don't know if we want to call it codependent, but I am definitely like, I'll be there for you. I want to cook for you. I want to help you. Like I'll incorporate you into my routine. I think most people do that.
Yeah,
And
it's
it's like
normal.
you also kind of adapt each other's personalities, you adapt each other's likes and dislikes. I mean, of course, you can still be yourself in a healthy relationship, but I have definitely after those relationships end, I'm like, who am I? Who was I then? Like it's like I get to recreate myself after every relationship.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I need to look up that girl's name. And look at you looking into the camera lens too, girl. Look at you building them
I'm
habits. I love it.
trying.
You're doing so great. Yes. But there's an artist, she's a country singer, and I can't think of her
Hmm.
name right now, but there's a song, it's called I Miss Me More. I Miss
Oh,
Me More.
who is that? Oh yeah.
I'll look it up. Once you start talking, I'll look it up because it's
Okay.
actually my phone's off. So that'll be off camera. But it's such a great song
Okay.
because it speaks to like after the relationship is over with, you really start for me, I could speak about me. It's not that I miss the relationship as much, like
Mm,
especially if I realized the relationship was toxic or I felt like, okay, we definitely will be better separated and we're no longer together. I love spending time by myself.
you
I,
missed
I
you.
travel by myself. I do things alone a lot of
Yeah.
times. So when you're in a relationship, as you mentioned before, you have to just kind of like always consider their feelings. You have to
Ah.
always think in
Yes.
twos, right? And sometimes, like, you come as a package deal with your friends.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not only Becca, it's Becca and her partner, or it's King Ferdinand
Yes.
and so and so. And that identity connection it's always been annoying to me. I don't want to be identified as a pair. I really love and
Yeah.
respect couples
Your
that have their
individuality.
individual, yeah,
Yeah.
identity. So
So
yes,
would you say you missed yourself?
yeah, I always go back to
Yeah.
me. I always love coming back to myself and getting back to the hobbies and things that I love to
Mm.
do because that relationship can sometimes pull you away from the things that you really identify with.
Yeah. You know what that made me think of also, because I'm single and have been for a while, but when I get into a relationship, I think I'm gonna have a little imposter syndrome. Because
Hmm.
like you just highlighted on a few things, I was like, oh my god, it's gonna be so hard to get back into that because
Yeah,
I'm so used to being alone and pretty much being a little selfish. I mean, I can eat what I want, do what
yeah.
I want. I don't have
Anytime you
to. Yeah, I
want.
can respond when I want. Like
Hmm.
Ooh, so it's gonna be a little bit of imposter syndrome, which I'm gonna embrace because I enjoy being in a healthy relationship. But
Yeah. I don't know
yeah.
how I'm gonna handle you being in a relationship, to be honest with you, because like I'm a little bit selfish.
I feel like
Like
we are in our own little like
we're
relationship, and it's so much fun.
your partner is more than welcome to come here,
Oh, well,
actually. Like,
yeah.
like and be part of this whole thing.
So
That would be ideal,
future
right?
partner that I have no idea will ever exist.
Yes.
You're welcome to come. So
Yeah. Yeah. And
that
join the party, join the conversation.
yeah. But this is
Um,
also me and King time though, so
I
I don't
know. So it's like
know.
you'll have to work your way up to that point. I don't know in the beginning.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
You notice I've been inserting little questions like two best qualities that you look for in a
I know
partner.
you
Maybe there might be a little
trying.
partner in the crystal ball coming up, but let's continue.
Yeah, my astrology cards have been saying the same. Woo.
Yeah.
Um, but another big thing is sexuality. That was big for me. Like when you
Um
find your
oh
sexuality.
yeah.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about it, but I'm so glad this episode, this piece of content right here, the universe knows exactly what it is doing. This is it. This is perfect. But yeah, sexuality, like finding out and discovering what it is that you really prefer. And that will be ever change. I believe that's
Mhm.
going to be ever changing forevermore.
Yeah, I just remember when I realized my sexuality. Like I was like, okay, who is Becca? Because for so long I was this, and that, and then now it's like, okay, now you're developing a whole nother culture
Mm-hmm.
and other people, and then you're navigating other people's opinions, and you're coming out all the time, and
Yeah.
like it's a whole new world and a whole new identity, but without losing yourself in other ways too. You know,
How real do you want to get when it comes to
we
sexuality?
can
As
we
far,
can get real.
yeah.
We can get real.
So I'm a gay man, and there's top, bottom, there's verse, there's
Yeah.
all these different definitions, and it
Mm-hmm.
goes even deeper into like, are you a submissive top or
Mm-hmm.
a dominant top, and all of these different things. But I say all of that to say, when I first came out, I actually thought that I was a versatile bottom.
Okay.
That's what the guys that pursued me, that's kind of where
Were
we
they
went.
the
That's
okay.
how it ended up.
Okay.
But over time, I would meet different guys and they would pursue me in the opposite way, like pursue me as if I was a top.
Mm.
And it was interesting
That
because
is
I went
interesting.
along with it
Okay, yeah.
and I was just like, okay, I do like this. And so to the point that we were just making is like over time, your preferences and your identity will shift when it comes to
Mm.
sexual preferences.
Yeah.
So now I'm a
Yeah.
top. I love topping. I love a bottom.
Ah.
Yeah. So and
So
that's really all I prefer.
I don't know about the gay world, but the lesbian world, they do you guys use stem? That word stem. So that's like both top and bottom.
Verse is what we
Oh,
say.
you'll call verse. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe it might be verse now. I'm not always.
STEM,
I'm not
STEM is
always
what
with
I've
the
heard.
time. Yeah, because like
Yeah.
there's specifics. I mean, that's kind of where my realm is, and I remember being like, "Oh, where do I sit? Where do I sit? Am I in the middle, the left or the right side, bottom, top?" But and that was an identity shift too, because it's like, who are you attracting? Who really are you in the bedroom?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that can also be for straight individuals too, like learning what they like and don't like.
Yeah.
And how they are, want to be, and even those who are transitioning. Like I can only imagine the identity
Absolutely.
crisis that
Yeah.
might go through your brain.
I don't consider myself to be like bisexual, but I love the idea of countries and cultures that embrace people who love both,
Both.
whatever, we love the connection between human
Yeah.
beings.
Mhm.
And wherever that goes, if it's a sexual thing between me and a girl
Mhm.
or a flirtatious thing, it shouldn't be, oh, I thought you were gay. Like
Yeah.
I don't understand that really.
Yeah, I'm in the same way, and I'll be completely real. I remember I had this conversation with an individual, and she was like, I don't like labels." I'm like, I don't either." She's like, "I only identify as a lesbian. That's the only label I'll keep." I was like, you know what? I almost don't either. I almost like I do. That's more my preference. But I've always said this, if I find a guy that just trips my trigger, I am not going to let those labels. Identify that. Like
Yeah.
I'm a lover. That's probably my biggest label. I
Oh,
don't
I
see that
love how
really.
you
I
put
don't really
that.
see
Yeah.
a guy happening in my future. So please do not DM me.
Right.
But if there was one that really hooked my soul, I definitely would give them a chance.
You wouldn't look away from it, right?
No,
Yeah.
and I mean, I
yeah.
used to date guys. Like that was a thing for years, up and until I hit 20. So, I'm not bisexual, but if there was a special guy that came in, I wouldn't knock it. I don't put a label on it.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that.
Definitely.
And I mean, I'm the same way too. I definitely identify as gay, and
Yeah.
I see myself with another guy, but there's a twinkle in me that would love to explore with him another girl,
Yeah.
like a girl.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
so that again, back to the identity shifting, and I think you should just allow yourself to be ever changing
Yeah,
over
this is
time.
a little shifting away a little bit from topic, but do you think labels are kind of putting us in these imposter syndromes?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because like
because like,
I'm telling you right now, like I used to have all kinds of gay circles of friends. Right
mm,
now I don't really hang out with very many people.
yeah,
And I feel there's like I can't really relate to a lot of the things that most gay men talk about
I'm
right
the same
now.
way with lesbians as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It could be because I'm just in a different headspace mentally and
yeah,
spiritually, but I do sometimes feel like an imposter when I'm in groups of with gay men, and they're all they're
yeah,
talking about is one thing, or sleeping
yes,
around with other men, or he's so hot. It's like, all
yeah,
right, next conversation. Can we
yeah.
talk about something more meaningful, please?
For
Like,
me, it's just so political, and it's like, and if you don't have the flag flying, then are you really this? And or
yeah,
if you don't wear this, or if you don't talk like that, or if you don't have these beliefs, and that's just so exhausting, and I don't fit in. And that's sometimes I feel an imposter syndrome of my sexuality in that manner
yeah,
for sure.
yeah, agree.
But another and the final thing, but when it might happen is grief, loss of a loved one. We talked
Hmm.
about breakup, but really like someone you've been caretaking for or has been consistent in your life, and you lose them to death. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and then what do you do after that? Because that could have been your whole world. That could have been
Yeah.
your better half,
Hmm.
if it so to speak. And so what do you do after that to recover from it?
Yeah. I know when my best friend passed away, right before we were 20. No, we were 20. Excuse me. Right before we were 21. It was an imposter syndrome because I changed everything. I changed my outlook on drinking and being reckless. I mean, I switched from a Mustang to a Ford F-150. I mean, excuse me, a Ford Ranger. I wish I had the Ford
Hmm.
150. But it was a little bit of imposter syndrome right after that grief, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I can't relate. But I definitely wanted to chime in on that. Just that whole like, what is your new daily rhythm?
Mm-hmm.
If you communicated every
Yeah.
single day with that person,
Yeah.
and you did a lot of things with them, I empathize or
Yeah.
sympathize with that.
And
So
like grandparents, me and my parents, we used to heavily take care of them. And then once they passed, it's kind of like, okay, you're not going to the hospital anymore. You're not providing prescription medication. You're not having these outings anymore. Like you now have all this free time. You have all this space,
yeah, yeah.
and recreating what you're going to do and how you're going to be going forward. So that's a good examples of what when it happens, when imposter syndrome really sets in. So let's talk about imposter syndrome. When does that click? When do you know that you're kind of going through an identity crisis, so to speak?
You feel, I mean, for me, I can speak personally, you feel out of place. And we talked
Hmm.
about it a little bit in like gay circles of friends and the
Yeah.
professional world when you're sitting at a table with very intelligent people, people who have 15, 20 years experience in X, Y,
Yeah.
and Z industry. And you're sitting amongst
Yeah.
these very intelligent and talented people,
Yep.
and you're wondering, what do I have to contribute to this conversation?
Whew, me as an executive assistant. Ooh wee,
Yeah.
did I feel imposter syndrome for a good 3 years?
Yeah, and an
Yeah.
executive assistant, you have a lot of responsibility, and you have to be
Mm-hmm.
highly intelligent, very productive, and efficient. So I can imagine how that felt.
Yeah, and I wasn't completely on all of those. Like
Yeah,
I
you
was
have,
there
but that's
to
what
I
you
was there
have to
to a degree, but
be.
I wasn't like tight knit. I looked nice, but I wasn't. I didn't look the part that everybody else looked,
Oh, I see.
and
I
I didn't
see.
have the millions of dollars that the people in that organization had. I mean, I was like bottom of the barrel.
Did they?
Like,
I mean, I don't think they expected that, but that was the imposter syndrome where you felt that
um,
way.
later on, they kind of exposed it in a different manner, so to speak. At least that was my perspective. They started to nitpick my attire a little bit more. And it wasn't like in your face. They weren't like, "Oh, please wear this." It was kind of like, "Oh, your attire is less than professional." Although, like another definition would be the opposite. But I was just remember being in rooms and just not be like, "Okay, is this me?" Like this doesn't feel right. Like, I feel I love the mission of the organization, but like the people I was around, I couldn't hold a conversation. I mean, they're drinking wines that cost twice as much as my entire life. I mean, as simple as that.
That's
And it wasn't
funny.
even just with the money; it was also the experience. Like their vacations were, always in these glamorous places, and my vacation was staying at home. It was enjoying the time off and spending time with my friends and family. Like we were just so different,
Hmm.
and the way that we talked to people, it was very corporate communication, and I am just real as can be.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
have a
that's
switch when I adapt based on my environment. So
I can be professional, but the corporate talk, I don't vibe with it.
yeah. After a while, I started to not resonate with it, but because I've done it, I've had to do it for so long, so many
Hmm.
years. I have a switch where if I'm in a room or in an environment where I have to speak in that way, use, corporate jargon
Yeah,
and acronyms and all of this stuff. And it does come very natural for me, but I
yeah.
much prefer to communicate in my own
Yeah,
terms.
no,
And yeah,
absolutely. And
yeah.
that's where my syndrome really came into it because I didn't feel like I could just communicate as I felt. Even in a professional setting, I had to really think about that jargon and I wasn't getting like these real answers. And that's where my imposter syndrome came in because I was just like stumbling over myself, like wasn't sure like what decisions to make, second guessing myself. And that's
Hmm.
that's a big one of the imposter syndrome is second guessing your decision and who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do remember it was extremely annoying, like having to like fit that mold and
Mm-hmm.
use these acronyms and corporate jargon, as I mentioned before.
Yeah.
But there is an element of if you're playing that game, you have to play along with
Mm-hmm.
them and drink that Kool-Aid to
Yeah.
some degree. And that unfortunately, it is a real thing. And if you
It's
think that
bitter.
it's
Bitter
yeah, it
Kool-Aid.
doesn't have sugar in it, baby. You need a little bit more sugar, but it's one of those things that I had to realize. And even now, in retrospect, I could have been probably in much higher roles and done even better in my
Mhm.
career if I cooperated. I just, for some reason, with
That's
certain
it.
people, I just was
Yeah.
like,
That was a lot
no,
of
I'm
me
not
too.
going to dinner tonight. I don't. I have some other things going on.
Yeah.
You have they invite you to dinner and all
Yeah.
these things, and you're not obligated to go. But the ones who go, they're usually part of certain conversations that
Yeah.
happen. And
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
FaceTime with executives and things like that.
But what I really noticed is like once I switched jobs, I'm in this university now and they don't do corporate jargon at all. It's professional. And I've noticed that like I've kind of stuck to that professionalism. And I kind of keep a little bit of the corporate, but not a lot because that sticks with you. Right. But they don't. And so I have a little bit of imposter syndrome. I'm more comfortable and I love it there because of that. But I notice I'm like, ooh, this is such a switch. So that's
Mm.
where I'm feeling a little bit of the imposter syndrome, but on a good side. Because I'm like, oh, this is what I'm comfortable with. Like,
Yeah,
I'm in the
yeah,
right place because now I can see the difference. Because when I was in that other side, I was like, what is wrong with me?
yeah.
Like,
I was about to say you find your groove and try not to navigate too far off because if you feel comfortable in the way you communicate now, that means that you've acquired this level of
mhm,
communication and this is what you prefer. And they have to
yeah.
meet you halfway too.
Absolutely. But I
So
do notice in this environment with this communication style, it's just a lot more comfortable. We get things done. And I enjoy that. But
yeah.
kind of side quest here with imposter syndrome. A big thing is that like you feel directionless.
Yeah. I can relate right
Yeah. I
now.
was like, I'm ready
Right
for
now.
you on this
Yeah.
one.
I can relate right now. It's crazy to think about what I have going on and what
Hmm.
things look like on social media, what things look like because I have a library of content on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube, right? All of these different things. And when I reflect on it, this is all things that I created from an idea in my head, right?
Yeah.
And I have a clear vision in everything that I do every day. I wake up, I think about what can I contribute? What can I do to contribute toward the vision that I have to fully realize it?
Yeah.
Right. But every day I do something and I also feel that sense of directionlessness, I
Yeah.
guess, if you will, and just wondering, wait, am I supposed to be like, okay, where am I going? What is
Yeah.
this? Like, what am I doing actually?
Yep.
But then I sit in this studio and talk just to talk with you. I sit on the other side of that camera and do what we just did with 13 questions.
Hmm.
And then it all feels so surreal. Like, this is exactly what I'm supposed to
Yeah.
be doing.
Yeah. And even if you're like in a state of doing something that maybe it's not generating money, maybe it's not looking like what everybody else is doing, that they can be definitely an imposter syndrome because you don't have nothing. It's like a blank canvas and it's just you. Like
Oh, yes.
it's a new design that no one's ever seen.
Oh, yes.
So you have no idea, and I feel like imposter syndrome is big with that one,
Big
for
time.
sure.
One more thing to add,
Yeah.
just the whole thing of changing careers and doing this, creating a podcast, creating a brand. This is not anything that I don't know anyone personally that has created their own brand and they're collaborating with artists and making designs and created a website and
Yeah.
releasing the product and created a show and recording the content in their home and
Mm.
editing and release. I don't know anyone who's doing all of these different things. I know
Mhm.
some people who's doing a small piece of it,
Yeah.
but not to the full capacity of what I've started to create 2 years ago is when I started doing all of this.
No. Oh, that's good. When you kind of go off the beaten path of what you know, like,
Yeah.
that's a good
I
point.
don't
Because
know
like
anyone else.
when I
So
went to school, I knew nobody else who like I'm still learning finding creators and people who have the same love and passion. And like, I come from educators and people who are in the medical field.
mhm.
So having people in the broadcast industry, that was just so weird and it was so different. And I'm like, okay, am I even on the right? Is this even like for me? Like, am I silly for this?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's
Yeah.
just a big indicator.
This episode is so relevant to where I'm at right now in life that it is just it's mind blowing. And the universe is so
Yeah.
precise. I always talk to my sister about this. And it's like every time we record a piece of content, the conversation is always so relevant to what
Yeah.
we are going through in real life right now,
Yes.
today with no delay.
Today with no delay. That should
Without
be a
delay.
signature right there.
Yeah, it's like right now, that is exactly how I feel. And I'm
Mm,
not one to express that very often, but we're getting real with Best of
we're
Becca.
getting
And I
real.
think that it's just so appropriate to be vulnerable and just share that. But I bring myself back to the train tracks. I didn't do that on purpose, but that was perfect. I didn't bring I'm bringing myself back to the train tracks every single day that I create a piece of content or I update the website or release a new product, and then I just realign with the vision that I've created a long time ago.
Mhm.
But that imposter syndrome is really, really real when your ecosystem or network of people all work nine to
Yeah.
five, Monday through Friday, corporate office, and
Schedule.
nothing similar to what you're creating
No,
here.
yo,
So,
that's huge. I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah, when you're on a completely different path from others, I think that's the same thing. Even if like we don't have kids, but I have a lot of friends and family who do have kids,
mhm.
and sometimes there's some imposter syndrome there too. And it's like, okay, am I doing the right thing? Or do I, is that my goal to have kids and a wife so that way I can fit in with those people as well? Or maybe that's not even for me at all. Maybe I'm gonna be single for the rest of my life and never have kids, and I'm just gonna be a dog person. You know what I mean? It's like it's a little imposter syndrome there. It's like,
Yeah.
who am I? But the truth is, it evolves. We talked about this before. It changes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You may never settle to be one thing. Like that imposter syndrome is ongoing.
It is.
Yeah.
Did we talk about relationships and having friends that's all in relation, or being single and then having your friends, they're all in relationships or they're
Oh,
all
not really.
married?
No.
Yeah, we should tap into that because I know we talked about it on the last piece of content that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't what we wanted
We
it to
did
be.
post. Yeah.
But I think that's so relevant because like I can speak for a quick moment and just say
Yeah.
like
Please.
all of my friends, all of my close acquaintances, they're
Mm-hmm.
all in relationships. And even though I was seeing a guy, I'm really seeing him off and on. It's like I still consider myself to be single because
Mm-hmm.
it's not anything
Right.
serious. So having friends that are married, engaged, or in long-term relationships that are like, successful, actually,
Yes.
that imposter syndrome taps in. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm 30, and I'm going to be 39 on Tuesday, the 20th.
Oh, I knew that was
Shout out
coming
to my
up.
Leos.
Woohoo.
But it's just that imposter syndrome kicks in. It's like, okay, when is it going to happen for me? I know, you
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't question God and the universe in that way, but just align yourself to what you want. And that's really what I do behind the scenes. But I'm just saying it on the show. It's like that imposter syndrome. You might ask yourself that question. It's like, okay, when is
Mhm.
this going to happen for me? Like I'm single, and being around all these people in happy relationships,
Yeah.
happy, healthy relationships. Okay, what's going on here? I don't have anything to talk to them about. They're planning
Yes.
trips. They're doing this and that.
Related. What's the word? Relatability.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one, and I think that's where you question. Oh my gosh, yeah, I feel like I'm going to transition with a few of my friends, who they're just like, Becca, you're just not the same anymore. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like I've changed a lot. I've been focused on myself. Like I have different mindsets, different habits, and
Hmm.
yeah, it is definitely that's a switch too. I'm like, how long is this gonna last? And is this am I gonna lose more friends? And maybe I'm just going through a phase, like that kind of thing,
Yeah.
big time.
And what's your advice to the listeners that might be going through something like that? Like, what do you say
Oh
to
yeah,
them?
keep going. Hang tight, embrace it.
Hmm.
Embrace it. This is your time to recreate. Um, and you're gonna attract those people who are in line with where you're at.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. I like that.
hmm
I would say try to fall in love with yourself.
Yeah.
Definitely continue to look back at yourself in the mirror and try not to shift your vibration by paying
hmm
attention to what other people are doing and what they have, because what is for you will be for you.
Yeah, and that's the good and bad parts of yourself. So
Yeah.
maybe you're actually in a realm where you're kind of indulging in some negative habits that you just can't quite get yourself out of. Love yourself through that,
Yeah, those
adapt
two. Yes, yes,
and know
absolutely.
that it's gonna be all right. You got
Forgive
this.
yourself if you have that chocolate
Yeah.
cake and that McFlurry from McDonald's.
Oh
Love yourself
yeah.
anyway, baby.
I'm getting that after this, I think. I've been craving it.
I
But
love it.
yeah, for sure. So we kind of dove into that recreation for sure. So,
Yeah.
don't fear it, embrace it. It's not a problem to fix.
No,
It feels
no.
like a crisis. I know. Because you're just like, where do I fit in? Again, who am I? What am I doing? Where am I going? What is happening?
Mhm.
Just embrace it. And maybe that is your identity is I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. And
You
the
know?
the thing is, I like what you said. It's nothing to fix. It's actually just your life story. It's the way your life is unfolding.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think the when you become aware that you have these feelings, I think honoring those feelings and just looking back at self, because I always say this, everything starts at home. And when I say that, I mean back in your mental headspace, everything is here. All the answers reside within
Yeah.
yourself. So just looking back at you and just again falling in love with yourself, focusing on your own mental, emotional, and physical health, all of those things at recreating that brand for yourself is going to bring you back home.
Yeah, that was so good. I really appreciate you for that.
Yeah.
That was deep. That was good. I want to
Yeah.
look back at that one for myself.
Absolutely.
So do you have anything else to add to this whole episode here?
Well, I really do appreciate you coming up with this, and I love how random it is because, like, you'll write the episode or you'll have the idea and you'll break it into the segments, and it's always so relevant to what I'm going through or what I
Yeah.
have gone through. So, 9 times out of 10, probably 99.9% of the episodes that you come up with, I'm gonna be able to add some life
Well,
experience
good,
to
because
it.
that's what these episodes and podcasts is all about. It's about helping you navigate through some similar experiences that we've been going through.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
So thank you guys again for listening. Make sure to follow us. But just to recap, we have talked about happens when does imposter syndrome occur? Talking about imposter syndrome, what it really is,
Yeah.
and how to define it in yourself, and then the fun recreation process.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again,
Thank you
Best
so
of Becca. I appreciate it as
much.
always, being your partner in
Of
creativity.
course. Thank you, King Ferdinand.
Yes.
Catch y'all next week.
All right.